Right, so I got a comment on one of my videos a few weeks ago from some lad saying, I'd love for you to do a piece on my wrestling movie, Kill City Cup. It's the worst wrestling movie ever, or the wackiest, depending on how stoned you are when you watch it. Oh yeah, let's get stoned. I don't do drugs. I'm a very boring man. I get my highs from sneezing, unexpected bus diversions, and finding 10 Pringles at the bottom of a tube I thought I finished the previous night. So, this is gonna be bad. But I do like taking suggestions from viewers, so if there's any video you want to see me make, then let me know. And who knows, maybe you could end up just like this incredibly lucky individual watching me watching them. I don't have an intro, so I'm just going to hit play.
People are always complaining about starvation, homelessness, chaos in the streets.
Yeah, real boring complaints. So the premise is that the world is in shit and the people aren't happy, so Mr. Kill, the owner of the world, is putting on a tournament where the winner can ask for anything they want. It's the first ever, unless there's more of these, I'm not sure, Kill City Cup.
And then maybe they'll stop bitching. I'm poor, I'm hungry, I'm being stabbed to death. Boo-hoo!
I kind of understand where he's coming from, to be fair. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You know, you're hanging out with a group of mates, but one of them's being a little bit moany. You know, he's had a rough day, he's venting. And, you know, I'm sorry you've been stabbed to death, don't get me wrong, but you're kind of killing the vibes. I do love the venue. It reminds me a little bit of Robot Wars, and it does a great job of helping you forget that there's nobody actually watching this.
And the rules?
Alright, that was a bit fucking rude. I don't know why they thought that was necessary. Could you imagine that in any other promotion? The following contest is set for one fall. Shut the fuck up, Samantha, right? Nobody asked.
Now let's meet the freaks.
Maxwell Chicago!
He's a lounge singer. He's a B-movie star.
I wasn't sure what to make of Maxwell Chicago, but after hearing that he was in B-movie, it's kind of hard not to root for him.
For it is his destiny, the master of the third eye.
When I heard him say Master of the Third Eye, I was like, imagine if it ended up being Matt Sydal. And it fucking was. I genuinely thought this was a college assignment. Like, no offense to Maxwell Chicago, or Chicago, as old Irish people say for no particular reason. But I just didn't think this was going to feature any actual names. And then fucking Jimmy Jacobs comes out, or Hecate's Hangman, I should say. And to be fair, we're 4 minutes into the show, and we've already got an explanation for why the tournament exists, and what the person running it is like, and the motives for every character involved. Jimmy Jacobs is in the tournament because he's a local criminal, and the owner agreed to clear his record if he wins it. Matt Sydal wants to bring peace to Kill City, and Maxwell, well, he just wants clout, right? But that's as good a reason as anything to do something like this. So the match begins, and the first thing I need to point out that you'll love is the commentary.
Neo Shaman saw where that was going, and he got the spike out of here. Maxwell Chicago in the tune of his glory days here. Can he get back to the limelight?
If you love the commentary from SmackDown, just bring it. The fella stays silent for most of the match, but chimes in occasionally with the odd, heavily scripted line that makes it sound like he's not actually watching the match that he's supposed to be commentating. And the flow is very similar to...
Kane is the best World Wrestling Federation tag team champion we've ever had.
But I would like to correct myself. I did say earlier that nobody was actually watching this show. It turns out that there's actually quite a lot of people watching this show. They're all just outside for some reason. The match itself is nice and short. My favourite part was when Matt Sydal hit Maxwell with the back rake, despite the fact that he's fully clothed. The match did not end by pinfall or submission. Jacobs rammed a spike into Maxwell's head and then hung him upside down, and the boss thought it was so funny that he just gave him the win. Then we're introduced to the first competitor of our next match, the ravishing Russian Crush, or Russian Crush? I didn't quite catch her name, but that's what Cage Match is telling me, so we're going to go with that. Then we have Zip Monk, who was raised by monks after his parents abandoned him, and now he wants revenge on this fella because he burned down his temple for some reason. The final contestant is Dr. Mercury, who's apparently quite a bad doctor, but I don't really know why he's in the tournament because they never really said why he wants to be there. I think what's really cool about this match is the realism. I know this is quite a divisive topic in pro wrestling, but I'm a huge MMA fan, and if you've ever watched MMA, you'll know this sort of stuff happens all the time in real fights. Zipmunk takes his time to pray in between moves, and I love that. You know, I'd say if there was ever a time to flex your Christianity, I think it'd be mid-fight. God probably thinks that's class. Again, no pins or submissions here. Crush basically spits mist into the eyes of the monk, and then hits a kick on the doctor in the corner, and whilst the kick lands, the cameraman seems to prick his finger on the corner of the camera, and they just end the match, and Crush is the winner.
If he wins the cup, he can leave with a license to kill and torture as he pleases.
I love that motive. First of all, if he wins, he's allowed to leave his asylum and kill anyone he wants, and that really raises the stakes for all the fans watching outside. But I love even more this fella looks just like Keith or Barry that you'd see like down the pub wearing a mask that he picked up in deals. He doesn't look enraged. He looks like he's tired after a long week with the wife and kids, so he's gone down to the pub for a few scraps. This is actually my favourite character, I think. This fella doesn't really have a motive. He just wants to consume the souls of other contestants, which I know some people might consider that's, bad sportsmanship or whatever, but I think it's fair enough, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Barry has to say about that. I've just seen the third contestant, right? What do you think this man's name is? If I was to ask you to guess this man's name, would you think it's something really intimidating, really, scary? Would you have guessed Leon by any chance? Because that's his name. Just Leon. Leon of the Wasteland, according to Cage Match, which is my least favourite Modern Warfare 2 map. Anyway, this is our first faction in the Kill City Cup, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. You can tell that move is mad painful because you can see you can see his mouth screaming in pain under his mouth. I also just noticed the cameraman is dressed in full gear. Not having the "We want tables" chant because all the fans are locked outside is actually a very underrated upside to the Kill City Cup.
Have you ever seen a soul leave someone's body?
I can't say I have, to be fair. Leon decides that instead of having his soul taken, he'll simply slam him onto barbed wire, which is a fair choice when you think about it, and the fans are happy enough at Barry not being able to come out and legally murder them, so that's good too. It's a nice happy ending to the match. He then goes back and turns Mr. Kill's son into the perfect human, which Mr. Kill is very happy about, but it turns out it's just Brian Cage. It turns out that Brian Cage is Mr. Kill's way of winning the tournament and stopping anybody else from winning and having their wish granted. His opponent doesn't even get introduced, and he pins him despite the fact there's no ref. Then Mr. Kill decides to keep giving more opponents to Mr. Cage for a laugh, and he just batters them. Jimmy Jacobs then comes out to square up to Brian Cage, only for us to hear the greatest, most authentic sound effects I've ever heard in my life. He then tries to take apart the machine with a screw, but Cage still batters him and hangs him upside down. Then we get the semi-final, the Russian Crush versus Leon. She kicks Leon's mate in the head before finishing Leon with some of the best visual effects I have ever seen. Then it's time for the final. Mr. Kill immediately brings his son out. The commentator also reveals that he's being held hostage.
I don't care if I get killed for saying this. Come on, Russian Crush. We need this. Hell, I need this. Get me out of here.
And finally, we see the Russian Crush win the Kill City Cup with the most brutal, devastating maneuver possible, right? And I'm gonna say this to you now, right, as a warning. This is one of the saddest, most emotional scenes I've ever seen in wrestling. It might be too much for some of you, so I just thought I'd put that little warning in there in advance.
My boy!
Overall, this show had it all. It had the talent, it had the commentary, it had the storylines, it had the set, it had the fans locked outside the venue for no reason. It had everything, and I, for one, am so happy to be spending my Saturday sitting in my room reviewing this amazing show. I miss Wembley so much.